I'm Tom Tucker.
And I'm Ron Burgundy.
And this is the Business News Network.
What's this, folks? Breaking news. We're just getting word now. Hostess, the maker of the nuclear bomb-proof Twinkie, is shutting down operations due to a labor strike.
For all you watching out there, let me fill you in on the events leading up to this point.
On January 10, 2012, Hostess Brands filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the second time in its history. In a statement within its filing, the company said it is not competitive, primarily due to legacy pensions, medical benefit obligations, and restrictive work rules. At the time, the company employed 19,000 people and carried more than $860 million in debt. The company would continue to operate as it had secured financing through a variety of private equity funds and hedge funds. On March 8, 2012, CEO Brian Driscoll resigned. Turnaround expert Gregory Rayburn was appointed CEO. Leading up to his resignation, Driscoll had given himself an increase in pay packages despite the poor performance of the company. In an effort to restore relations with the union, Rayburn cut his salary to only $1. In May of 2012, in accordance with the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, employees were notified that they may face mass layoffs if the company were to sell themselves. In June 2012, negotiations with one of their major unions were going well, and they were close to an agreement which would cut employee pay and benefits on the condition that the company maintained funding of the existing pension plan. Later, in September of 2012, the Teamsters Union accepted the contract with reduced wages and benefits. However, the union representing the bakers did not. The Bakers Union and the company continued to negotiate. However, on November 9th, the union commenced a strike. Hostess stated that if the union could not come to an agreement, the company would liquidate and lay off all workers. On November 16th, Hostess and the union had still failed to come to an agreement. Therefore, Hostess ceased its operations as it had promised. By ceasing its operations, it had planned to liquidate and permanently terminate all employees. On November 19, 2012, a U.S. bankruptcy court ruled that a liquidation would not be allowed. It ruled that Hostess Brands and the union would have to enter mediation. The following day, on November 20, 2012, it was widely reported that mediation had failed between the two parties, making a liquidation likely. On November 21, 2012, the bankruptcy court gave preliminary approval for the company to shut down and cease operations. It is expected within the next few days 15,000 employees will be terminated.
The fact that the court appointed a mediator was a good first step instead of instantly proceeding with liquidations. In most cases, mediation will typically resolve the problem with both sides being satisfied in some way. However, in the case of Hostess versus the BCTGM International Union, mediation failed because the sides could not come to an agreement. Also, before this, collective bargaining had failed between the union and the Hostess brands. This situation is a very good example of pluralist perspective within industrial relations. In pluralism, the two groups consist of the union and management. Management attempts to persuade the union. In this case, they are attempting to persuade the union to accept a lower compensation package along with reduced benefits. According to the equity theory, employees expect a fair return for what they contribute. The union feels if they cave to the demands of the company, their employees will not be receiving fair compensation. Based on current labor market, employees would still be receiving higher compensation under the new agreement than they would with similar positions that are presently available.
You know, that's interesting, Tom.
Thanks for that great insight, Ron. Also, if the union accepted this deal, which included shares of the company for the employees, one could say that the company is paying to motivate teamwork. Under both the union's proposal and Hostess's proposal, a low P to O ratio would occur. This is because in a union environment, compensation packages do not include bonuses and commissions. This news team takes a classical perspective on unions. The fact is that they cause the company to incur higher labor costs. Also, this union disrupted business for Hostess. The union also puts the organization at a disadvantage, seeing as how the company's bankruptcy is partially caused by the pension burdens and arcane labor regulations instituted by the unions.
Now to our in-the-field reporter, Trisha Takanawa.
Hi, I'm Trisha Takanawa, field reporter for the Business News Network. I'm here on site at the Hostess factory as the union is striking. Here with me is Randy Leahy, a baker for the Hostess brands. Randy, what are your thoughts on this strike and what would you recommend to the union?
Well, I'd just like to say that this is terrible for me and for everyone involved. As for the union, I would recommend them to give in to some of the demands of the company. If we don't, how can we be guaranteed we will still have our jobs under the new ownership? But if we give in to all of the demands, we won't be receiving fair compensation.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. You have wonderful insight. Having said that, from the company's perspective, it would be in their best interest to hold their ground and continue to attempt to liquidate the business, unless the union gives in to their demands. If they keep paying their employees as much as they are now, the company will no longer be economically viable and will have to cease operations regardless. Back to you, Ron.
For all of us here at the Business News Network, I'm Ron Burgundy. You stay classy, San Diego. I mean, Hrob 2100.
And thanks for stopping by.
But mainly stay classy.